Here we go. So if you will bear with me a moment, we'll get the show on the road. Before I get started, though, does particularly any of the presenters, are you guys all copacetic, comfortable? You got a glass of water nearby and all that stuff that we're all supposed to be ready for? Okay. Fantastic. Oh yes, during the performances, we would ask that you stay muted, except for the person who obviously is reading or performing. But what you can do if you're on a PC and you don't have the chat window open is you can temporarily unmute yourself by hitting the space bar, and that way you can cheer or clap or whatever for a second and not worry about interrupting the flow of the whole thing. Because sometimes what ends up happening is if you don't realize your mic is on, sound like, whatever, garbage truck or airplane or something may suddenly become part of someone else's reading, which may not be ideal. But anyway, prepare yourselves. Here we go.
The Irish American Writers and Artists, you'll be most welcome to join us. We are not Irish, really. We are not American. What we are concentrating on mostly is your artistry. So songsters, guitar players, dancers, painters, poets, and novelists. Any art that you have, you are welcome. So our business is love of art, love of each other, and have love, life, laughter.
Hi, I'm Brendan Costello, and you're listening to, or you're watching, the Irish American Writers and Artists online salon for October 12th, 2022. Welcome, and thank you all for being here. We've got a great lineup, a wonderful selection of writers and artists who are going to be sharing work with you tonight. And as I was just saying before we got started, please visit our website, IAWA.org, where you can find out all about our upcoming Eugene O'Neill Lifetime Achievement Award, this year honoring Larry Kirwan. It's a big event that we're actually having in person again for the first time since 2019, and at Rosie O'Grady's in Manhattan. And it's going to be a wonderful event. I'll be talking it up more later on, so I'll spare you the details right now. But let's get to our first presenter tonight. First presenter is Sam Canney. He's a gay poet based in Brooklyn, New York. He's an ex-management consultant and ex-entrepreneur. His works create space for what was missing during his problem-solving era: self-love, compassion, and healing in the midst of an increasingly chaotic world. Sam's writing is his way of finding home. And you can read more of his work in this year's forthcoming autumn anthology of Sunday Mornings at the River. So please welcome Sam. And
thank you, Brendan. First of all, can you hear me all right?
Yeah, go ahead.
Great. At any time that messes up, just let me know. So I have just 2 poems for all of you guys today. And I will just jump right into it and talk a little bit more about them afterwards. The first one here is Stealing Green Tea from Panera. Last time, I took it too far when I walked out the door. Excuse me, hurt a lot. More than the shrill, blaring sirens of the H&M security scanner, or the soft-spoken, underpaid snitches behind Panera's delivery window. Wait, that one was funny. You ever steal before? There's this rush, attention breaking, When it really matters, you make a run for it. That depends on mom or dad coming to mind when you're caught. Anyways, I don't know why some places keep drink cups next to their drink machines for just anyone to take. And you give me that look when I come through your side entrance to cool off. It smelled like composted onions anyways. Water cups are for water only. Makes you sound like a bitch. That excuse me I last got though, that made me sound like a bitch. That sounded like my little brother. I'm getting ahead of myself. The manager at Panera was checking the to-go bags for accuracy. He kind of looks like the underpaid snitch. Small eyes, no upper lip, dark brown hair. Where the fuck was that onion smell coming from anyways? I sipped their green tea slowly. Twitter says if you lock eyes long enough, you'll fall in love. Panera Boy's eyes were kind of cute, blue. I already broke the tension. Tea tasted like juice after walking 44 sidewalk blocks. I let it dribble down my cheek and run across the stubble on my chin. Could have choked, so I started laughing inside so hard. You can tell when someone's about to break their tension if you know where to look. Another wrong bag. White fingers steady, a little pulse in his neck, nostrils flared, but I could tell he needed to take a breath. From the register I heard, "Mommy, what's that smell?" And "Don't be rude," whispered loud enough for me to hear in the back. Then someone screamed. I made sure to get a refill before I left that episode of The Young and the Restless at Panera Bread. I can't fucking stand reruns. I was thinking of my mom, if you were wondering. But when I heard that "excuse me" as I opened the door to leave the thrift store, home and hearth printed on the window, I thought about my dad. No chance they saw where I went. Why were their voices searching for me in the parking lot? I left both full tote bags under the "proceeds go to Marion Smith Fund for Alzheimer's" sign. From my pocket, I felt the tension again. Sun scorching on the pavement, scorching on me. Wish I had some fucking green tea. "Excuse me" echoed in my head, the way you hear sirens get quieter and quieter as the ambulance screams down the street. One tear only, streaming through my stubble under gravity. I zipped up the door to my tent after the voices went far enough away. Echoes quieter, but louder in my head. I left the watch where it landed, outside. What's that smell? Composted onion. So that poem was written for my best friend, who is a recovering klepto, and the next floats on its own. It's called...
Sam, can I just interrupt you for a quick sec?
Please.
You're cutting out a little bit, and I'm not 100% sure if there's something that we can do about that. Are you recording on
Possibly.
your device as well?
I am. It just shows that you're recording.
Okay, because it's saying recording. But if you don't mind, I don't know if you turn off the camera and just read. I mean, on the other hand, I know you had suggested sharing the text, but this way I think we'll put you back on the camera after. But for this time, if you can just we might be able to hear you better. So go for the gusto.
Not at all. All right. We'll try this now. Hope you guys can hear it, and thanks for bearing with me. Happy to be here. Hallucinogenics sound like hallelujah. 5 turtles sit floating lagoon, each dipping their uncut toenails in and out of the water, flicking their sun-dried mossy shells. Lean in, feel the same, sun beating sweat-salted skin, a softener. In the brief passes of the breeze, the trees groan because this season's bark is loose. Also, rather, altogether, grown because this heart is loose. Don't forget that mountain puffed and dusty footprints saying "not yet," detours to waters called peace, dip a toe in. Even the flower, yellow, who stopped you to say hello, knew grief to the root. Still, yellow. It's okay to cry. even when swirls of pollen shimmer like their eyes. Just breathe them in and out on the breeze. Thank you.
All right, unmute yourself for a second. Give a big hand. Sam, welcome, and we hope we have you back again, man. Thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you.
All righty. That was Sam Canney. Our next presenter is a familiar face to many of you. She is our anchor, if you will, in the Bay Area. See what I did there? The little sea shanty joking going on already. But Lori Cassels has been she is a writer in many genres. She does poetry, she's songwriting and playwriting, and she's now living in California, but she's going to be sharing a memory piece from her time growing up in New York City. And once again, I just want to say that Lori has been wonderful, and she has hosted a few of these online salons over the past couple of years, and hopefully will continue to do so in the future. So without any further ado, let me pass you on to Lori Cassels. You're still muted.
Okay, hello everyone. And I thought I'd bring a visual aid, seeing how we were talking a lot about Eugene O'Neill. The house behind me is his house called the Dow House. And for today, I had the opportunity to write there. So I'm going to be sharing two works that I was able to complete there. One is a short poem, and then I'll do that memory piece. First one is The Trunk Room at the Dow House. There are no trunks in the trunk room now. No tags depicting destinations from trains traveled coast to coast, New York to California, no wardrobes filled with gowns and tuxedos, not a sign of the luggage that crossed the vast Atlantic and Pacific, holding pages of scribbles that would become award-winning performances. Only old theater posters adorn the white blocked walls, and there is a desk, a printer, Wi-Fi, invisible as it answers over the ether, whatever a gadfly ponders. Yet there is baggage, there always is. So look beyond the Trampas Hills, beyond the Madrone Trail, where banshees howl, fairies sing, and the stories we carry in our souls. And if we listen, if we dare, maybe the unseen trunks filled with memories will inspire. And I'm hoping that inspires, because we're trying to put together a Eugene O'Neill themed salon sometime this fall, hopefully November. So if you have any things you'd like to share with that in mind, you can email me. So I wrote this while writing at Eugene O'Neill's Dow House, and this is a memory essay from my English class in junior year high school. It's entitled, Me, Eugene O'Neill, 1973. Everyone, and especially you, Cassels, write neatly on that essay, the essay part of the exam, admonished Mrs. Monte, my English teacher at St. Barnabas High School in the Bronx. As she completed her lecture for tips on the must-pass English Regent exam, she gave the missives about penmanship to all, then singled me out for the, if I can't read your essay, Cassels, then I can't grade it. The dreaded essay about a literary work that must be at least 500 words, and it's got to be spelled right, grammatically correct. It's not that I disliked English. I loved reading poetry and the short stories and the Shakespeare and the Harlem Renaissance and the American novels. I just didn't love writing about it. Next, Mrs. Monte informed the class that there was a choice of answering 25 multiple choice questions instead of the essay. Answer questions, short answer? No essay? I'm listening. But nobody, and I mean nobody, should choose the questions because we haven't covered all the literary works that was asked. So do not do the essay. So do the essays, and Cassels write legibly. Mrs. Monte went on, and if you do the multiple choice, which you shouldn't, but if you do, make sure you know all 25, don't guess. And if you aren't positive about all 25, do the essay. And at this time, all my classmates joined in and said, and Cassels, write legibly. Unknown to Mrs. Montes, I had a secret. And that secret was that I loved to read, especially plays. So in my Bronx neighborhood, there was a small stationery store on Bainbridge Avenue called Cozy's. It was located on the corner where I waited for the number 4 bus that would take me to high school. It was a mess of a store. It's like 12 feet by 12 feet, all crammed, a hodgepodge of notebooks and pens, greeting cards, ledgers, party decorations, rain bonnets, you name it. There was no rhyme or reason to this store or any organization. You basically had to ask Mr. Cozy to find what you wanted, and he would hand it to you, all grumpy, like you were bothering him. By the door was this metal book rack, a display that rotated. And there were comic books and popular novels on the top, but on the bottom, there was a small collection of compilations titled Plays of the 1930s or Plays of the 1940s or other decades. And these just cost 40 to 60 cents. Over the course of my high school years, I purchased all small paperbacks and discovered the works of Tennessee Williams, Anton Chekhov, Arthur Miller, Joe Wharton, and especially Eugene O'Neill. I loved Anna Christie and The Moon for the Misbegotten, Desire Under the Elms, and Long Day's Journey into Night. I barely understood what was actually going on. I was just in high school, but the emotion and the despair enthralled me. In the 1970s, growing up in a Bronx walk-up apartment, it was not a charmed experience. I mean, I was fed and clothed and mostly happy. I'm from a middle-class, hardworking, blue-collar family that never suffered the way the O'Neills did. We weren't the Cabots in Desire Under the Elms. And we were nowhere near the Tyrones of Long Day's Journey into Night. I was clueless about the struggles with alcohol and drug addictions, but I empathized with the longings that his characters embodied. My family's aspirations for me was to take the civil service exam, get a job, and then get a pension in that order. So back to that warm June exam day in New York State for the New York State Regents. When the proctor said begin, I did the short answers and I wrote as legibly as I could. Then came the essay, and I have no recollection of what the topic was because I went right to the 25 multiple choice questions. Some of the questions were, Eugene O'Neill's play, Long Day's Journey into Night, depicts over a 24-hour period the struggles and despair for that gentleman caller was named Laura. In Shakespeare's Merchant of Venice, the woman lawyer who dressed as a man was Portia. Name the 18th century writer who wrote of social class and penned Pride and Prejudice and Sense and Sensibility. Jane Austen. And on this section went. I was pretty positive of 24 of them. I couldn't remember who wrote the Brothers Karamazov. Was it Tolstoy, Dostoevsky? I wasn't a big fan of Russian literature. Last question. Who was the first American playwright to win the Nobel Prize for Literature? I didn't even have to check the others. It was Eugene O'Neill, of course. I double-checked my answers, satisfied as I got up and I placed my exam on the proctor's desk. On the final day of school, I learned that I passed the English Regent with 90. Mrs. Monte shared she was proud of how we all did on our exams and wished us a good summer. The bell rang, and as we shuffled out, she called my name, Cassels. I held my breath when I was scoring your exam. But as it went on and on, I was feeling more and more relieved. You got all of them correct, all 25. And there were a lot of questions on plays that we never covered, like the last one on Eugene O'Neill. I shrugged and I said, I like to read plays, especially his. She shook her head and then added, well, thanks for sparing me your handwriting. And I smiled and shrugged quietly to myself, thanks for guessing Dostoevsky right. Thank you.
Oh, that's great. That's wonderful. Yeah. So, Lori, I just wanted to chat for a second. You were talking about how, and by the way, I love that poem as well. That was really fantastic. I mean, if anybody's going to have baggage, it's certainly going to be Eugene O'Neill's trunk room, right? But so tell us a little bit about that experience and how you got in there and a little bit more about what that was like.
There was an application that was sent due to, there was an email that was sent about, does anyone want to do the it's called the Travis Bogart Fellowship. And they would do in 2019, they was doing something new. For years, they've done an artist in residence where they had professors and people working on projects that would come and they would house them at a nearby facility. And then you got to write in, I should show you, I have more photos. Maybe I should do a slideshow one time of Eugene O'Neill's place. But then they decided to do something where it would be only local Bay Area writers, and you had to submit a project, and you had to submit references, and pretty much when they approved me, and I had my friend Catherine Barry, who a few of you know, she gave me a nice reference. You had to you were given a key, and you got to write there for 5 days. With no one else there. There might be tours going on every once in a while, but you weren't in the house. You were in the trunk room, which was an off building. And then you got a key to his library, which had, amazing things in there. Every playbill from all his works. It's where I discovered his poetry and other things that I wasn't aware of. I just knew about his plays. And that's pretty much, and then I got to do it 4 more times after that since 2019.
And just to be clear for everybody to understand, the Tao House is in California. It's
Danville, California. It's where he lived from 1938 to 1944. It's where he wrote Long Day's Journey, A Moon for the Misbegotten, Iceman Cometh, Many Mansions, Yui. There's even, I think there's 2 more and I'm not listening, but his later works were there.
And just again, for the folks in the cheap seats, who was the first American playwright to win the Nobel Prize for playwriting?
Guy from that house.
All right, there's his chimney and a tree next to it.
I got more shit photos, but yeah.
Well, thank you very much, Lori, and great reading. Thank you very much. And let me know if you want to. We'll make sure people know about when we get the date set up. About if people are interested in participating in the online salon, we'll make that happen. But again, thank you very much. And keep an eye out for that. I did post our main website into the chat as well, but we're moving on. Our next reader is Terrence Fanning. Terrence Michael Fanning is a former New York City resident, now living in Delray Beach, Florida. He joined Emily Rosen's memoir class in Boca Raton, and then he's been writing for over a decade, and he's completed a manuscript called Lucky Felon. I'm not sure if that's what we're going to be reading. We're going to be hearing from tonight, but
it's an excerpt of it. It's an excerpt out of it. Yeah.
Well, here and so without any further ado, here is Terrence Fanning.
How you doing? This took place 40 years ago. Eli was a fellow college student and the editor of the prison newspaper, Borderlines, a title that carried juice throughout the Bordentown Correctional Facility. We'd meet in the big yard at dusk or run laps along the razor wire fence, away from the crowded weight pile and prison softball game. I was training for the mile run and an array of sporting competitions for Bordentown's spectacular annual 4th of July holiday hootenanny. Not sure how I'd fare in the meter races, probably not a chance. But I thought I could outlast them all with my endurance and training. Terry, the sports editor is getting paroled next week. You're a good athlete. Why don't you join the Borderline staff as a sports editor? Really? Yeah, you'd be perfect for the job. Well, sure, Eli. Thinking I consider a degree in journalism upon my release. The boxing team is having a smoker next week. You used to box, right? Yeah, a wee bit, yeah. Thinking back to the days I was training for the New York City Golden Gloves. Great, that'll be your first assignment. Go for it. And I have a good used typewriter for you too for $50, Eli added. A typewriter too? Now I was really feeling like a reporter. You got a deal, man. We shook hands on it. Imagine the headlines in the next issue. Terry Fanning, the new sports editor, hot off the press. It all seemed logical to me now. Though my boxing career was brought to a sudden end, daily training with my former middleweight contender, Irish Danny McAloon, allowed me the privilege to spar in some of New York City's legendary boxing clubs. Gleason's Gym on 10th Avenue near Madison Square Garden, and the elegant New York Athletic Club located on Ritchie Central Park South. I was developing a snappy jab, straight right hand, and powerful left hook, the good old 1, 2, 3, bam. Yeah, those were the good old days, until my left shoulder was re-injured during a sparring session. We're gonna have to turn you into a southpaw using the right-handed jab, unorthodox style, Danny instructed. That was like learning the bare bones of boxing from the very beginning. Now we're faced with getting beat up all over again. Disillusioned, I enlisted in the army in search of a fight in the Middle East. That was only 4 years ago, I thought. When I locked myself that night, the thoughts of my new assignment kept running through my mind. How was it going to write it? I had only authored a few essays in school, none of which would be considered a scholarly achievement. All I had was a GED and measly 6 college credits, which I'd attained right here in Bordentown. Not a very impressive resume. I didn't think I was qualified. I saw Eli a few days later in mess hall and informed him of my lack of credentials. Are you kidding? Most of the inmates here don't even have elementary educations. You'll be okay. Don't worry about it. I received permission from the warden to be let into the gym while the boxers were training. I took a deep breath and with pen and clip on hand, entered the chamber of warriors, taking mental notes of my familiar surroundings. The speed bag sounded like a machine gun, and the thunderous blows of leather on the heavy bag stirred up memories of my pugilistic exploits. A trainer was demonstrating to a novice the proper way to wrap his hands. Several were shadow boxing, others were jumping rope and doing push-ups. The sweaty, sleek, dark bodies were preparing for riding night smoker with the notorious Trenton State Penitentiary. I stepped closer to the ring. A sparring session was underway. The trainer was barking out orders to his fighter. That's it, Johnny. Stick and move, flex that jab out there. Don't back up. Don't be afraid to mix it up. That's it. You go, son. The bell rang. Johnny slouched on his stool and spit out his mouthpiece. The corn man gave him some water. Mr. Pridgeon coached his young prospect. You did great, champ. Busted him up real good. He'll be pissing blood tonight with all them body shots you hit that sucker with. Johnny Davis was doing a life sentence for murder. Rumor had it he killed the man over a dice game. Johnny was also good with the hoops. He played with the Lifers basketball team and embarrassed me in the prison championship game. I didn't realize he could throw leather too. The young man had skills. I arrived Friday evening, half an hour early for the smoker. Eli couldn't make it. He had a blockbuster interview with the infamous cop killer, Tommy Tarantino, who was on death row but escaped the death penalty when it was overturned by the New Jersey State Legislature. All the boxers huddled around while Mr. Bridges encouraged his youngest fighters to bring their A knuckle game. We just got to do what we do, fight like we fight, make him eat leather, put a hurting on him. The boxers roared. I took my seat in the stands as the gymnasium swelled to capacity with a raucous riders crowd, teeming with testosterone as the two fighters climbed into the ring. The New Jersey Boxing Commission enlisted the services of Richard Steele, a world-renowned professional referee I had often seen on television. The announcer introduced the fighters as Richard Steele brought the boxers together in the center of the ring to read them their last rites. But wait a minute, shut the kitchen door. The prison homosexual, little bit, was walking around the ring holding up a sign reading round one. She was dressed in drag, hot pants, knitted pantyhose, high heels, lipstick, earrings, the whole gizmo. The crowd was whooping, whistling, hollering. Damn, baby girl, you's a fine bitch, little bit, you hoe. Bedlam ensued. The horde of the Myers were howling more for a little bit than the Bordentown boxers. Afterward, for fact's sake, afterward, I hurried to my cell, eager to write my very first story. I'd have no qualms concerning the headline. It would undoubtedly scream, little bit, a knockout with Bordentown's boxing fans.
All right. Oh, thank you very much,
You're welcome.
Terry. As a very vivid story there. Great stuff. Great stuff.
Yeah, thanks.
I also, I have to say, I like the story of you getting your first typewriter. That's a
Oh yeah, that was
nice
cool.
touch.
Yeah, I thank God I knew how to type. I took typing there.
All right.
That was my first writing gig. Anyway.
Nice.
That's
So we're going to wrap up the first half with a little bit of music. And I just want to say, I mean, he's going to introduce us himself, but I just wanted to say that as many of you probably know, the Irish American community in Ireland and the world lost somebody last month. Mick Maloney is a wonderful musician and just an all-around wonderful person. You know, it sort of happened very suddenly, and there have been some memorials and stuff for him. And fortunately, we were able to get Mike Glick to join us, and his performance is going to be a tribute to or done in honor of Mick Maloney. But here now is Mike Glick.
Okay, folks, so greetings. This is Mike Glick here. I'm going to do a song here that's, I want to dedicate it to a dear friend who recently died. Many of you may know him. His name was Mick Maloney. And he was someone I was really looking forward to spending a lot of time hanging out with. We literally knew each other less than a year. But I met him initially because another friend, Donnie Carroll, who he works with at an orphanage in Thailand, they were having a benefit, and I actually texted, I left a message for Donnie on Facebook when he had posted the whole thing about it, and I said, you know, I'm willing to do it, and you know what, if you don't want me to do the political stuff, that's fine. I just want to help out. And Mick Maloney, of all people, jumps in. I had no idea he knew anything about me. He says, no, I love Mike's music, and tell him to do whatever he wants. So I went and played the benefit, and I played this song there, among other songs. And it's a song I wrote after the trial of the murderer of George Floyd, the cop who murdered George Floyd. And unbeknownst to me, it turned out that Mick's sister and her husband live across the river from where the event took place. And they were, they were very moved by the song, and they really loved it. And I spoke with them after. So anyway, I'm sending this out for Mick, his friends, his family. And God, I miss him, and I haven't known him that long. So I really thought, because we were talking about getting together. Anyway, here we go. This song is called Hearts for George Floyd. The witnesses turned to the jury, and many broke down and they cried, and they tried to put words to the horror they felt at the sight of a black man who died. He begged and he pleaded, shouted and yelled, even called for some other police. But that knee stayed on the neck, and a man died Christ-like to a thing with the soul of a beast. What does it take to believe that some are less human than you? We're all born innocent to this beautiful world, with a warm golden sun and a sky that is blue, each with water and food and fresh air to breathe, to bring us up to be whole. Yes, we are born innocent, but some are raised to be bent, twisted to live with a dark, ugly soul. And as the world watched in shock at the lynching, we learned the sad truth of it all. The defense tried to say George's heart was too big, but they proved the cop's heart was too small. And we learned that another man died today, shot in the back of the head. Another clings to life, connected to tubes. 7 bullets left him for dead. And then there was a young boy, raising his hands way up high. He threw his weapon away and was no threat to those whose hate and fear caused him to die. And as the world watched in shock at the lynching, we learned the sad truth of it all. The defense tried to say George's heart was too big, but they proved the cop's heart was too small. Like millions, George fell victim to a legal prescription, the cruel trap of opioids. His girlfriend said he fought it and spoke of his sweetness and the foods that he greatly enjoyed. You could see in your mind he was gentle and kind, but he saw nonetheless he was doomed. Still I hope and I pray, and I'll fight for the day a black man's humanity will be assumed. And as the world watched in shock at the lynching, we learned the sad truth of it all. The defense tried to say George's heart was too big, but they proved the cop's heart was too small. And as the world watched in shock at the lynching, we learned the sad truth of it all. The defense tried to say George's heart was too big, but they proved the cop's heart was too small. What does it take to believe that some are less human than you? Thank you. So I played that at the benefit, and I did find out that with the some of the obits for Mick, that apparently one of his last projects, he was working on a documentary, but it was some kind of project that was related to the interaction of the Irish community and the black community. And the other kind of thing that sort of reminded me is when we first got in touch, I noticed that he had sung a song called "If It Wasn't for the Irish and the Jews." So I got a kick out of that. You might even go check that out on YouTube. And Mick sings it. But anyway, folks, I gotta go now.
Okay, so that was Mike Glick. I neglected to give you his full bio, but it will be in our blog about it. And just so you know, you can find out all about him at his website, which is generations-music.com, which I'm going to post in the chat momentarily. But in the meantime, I'm going to take a few minutes, relax, have a beverage or do whatever things might be needed to be done. We'll be back here in about I'd say about 10 minutes. So if you want to hang around, I'll turn the spotlight off of myself and you guys can chat amongst yourselves freely, if you will. When we come back, we're gonna have Adrianna Mateo is gonna do a song. And then we've got Lawrence Welsh, Gemma Whelan, and if all things go according to plan, or if some things go according to plan, we'll also have Mr. Malachy McCourt joining us. So stick around. Thank you all very much for being here, and shoot me questions or throw them in the chat, and we'll be back momentarily. All right, enjoy, be well.
Thought I'd say hi to Larry. Hi, Larry.
Hey, how you doing, Laurie?
I'm good. How's your writing workshop? Are you going to be heading to Dingle next month?
Will be, yes. Looking forward to it. Yeah. For others who might be listening, there's the Dingle Literary Festival on November 18th through the 20th. And I'll be moderating a session there that we're calling Getting History Right.
Mhm.
And it's about best practices in historical research. And we're going to demonstrate some of the latest online available primary sources. And I think it's going to be really interesting. You know, we're featuring a lot of these sources that are now being digitized that formerly were not very accessible to people. A lot of them ancient documents. But if you're writing about Irish history, these documents are very important. And they're all, a lot of them are being digitized. And so that's going to be a major component of our seminar. And so we're very excited about that. And of course, there's a wide array of speakers, writers of all stripes, and shops that one could attend. And all of it's online at dinglelit.ie. Simple as that, dinglelit.ie.
Dingle Lit. And it's in person, or is it Zoom? It's in person, right?
It's in person.
Mhm.
They started these festivals in 2019, and soon after had to go online, through Zoom or what have you. And now they're coming back live. So, everybody's sort of enthusiastic about that. And if you've ever been to Dingle, it's a small town, but it's a beautiful seaside community where there's a lot of very, very, very kind and genuine people. You're apt to hear the Irish language there as well as English all over.
Mhm.
It's there on the Dingle Peninsula, and so if those have traveled in Kerry, County Kerry, you're probably familiar with that. It's just a gorgeous, gorgeous place in Ireland.
Mhm. Great.
So, yeah, thanks, Laurie. Appreciate the
Yeah.
opportunity to talk about it.
Yeah, Larry, this is Brendan. I got your note, and we'll definitely get it into the next newsletter. But if you want to tell me the link again, I'll put it in the chat right now. It's dingle.ie.
No, Dinglelit,
Dinglelit.
DINGLELIT.ie. Yeah, thanks, Brendan. I saw where you had in the last newsletter that November's events would be in the next newsletter, and so I knew that that was the case, and that's fine. Just wanted people to be aware of it. If you happen to be in Ireland, you might want to check it out.
Yeah, I'm always putting that in the newsletter. We're doing stuff in Ireland, just saying like, who do you know in Galway? Who do you know in Dublin? Because we do have a lot of members that family over there, or might be traveling over there right now. John McDonough, I don't know if he's done yet, but John McDonough, one of our board members, was just taking his show on the road, and he was part of the he's part of the Sean O'Casey festival in Dublin, as well as a couple of other places around the country. So there is a lot of intercontinental or cross transatlantic cultural exchange going on.
It's good.
So,
It's good.
yeah, and it's great that you're putting this together. And is this the first one that you're doing, or have you done one already?
We did one in Carlingford. Carlingford's a medieval era town. That's its roots, and it's also a seaside community right on the border between the Republic and Northern Ireland. And we were able to do a pilot offering of this session, and we put in a proposal to the Dingle Literary Festival, and they liked it. They talked with us at length online about the content of it. I have 3 speakers lined up, each of them providing a different perspective. One of them being from Trinity College Dublin. She's a PhD student and works with these primary sources, part of the digital effort that's going on there in Trinity, and they're doing some wonderful work. So we have this small group that's doing the workshop on good best practices in historical research. So it's something that most writers at some point are writing history. Maybe it's just to provide some background or some color to your work, your narrative, whether it's fiction or nonfiction. And so I think having these tools and knowing about them, their availability online free, and how those tools are becoming increasingly available online, that's something we thought was worth getting across. So in the process, it helps people write with greater fidelity, to the characters and places and events.
Yeah, absolutely. That actually reminds me, and this is something that Maria should have reminded me about last act. But one of the other things that we've got going on in November, both the Eugene O'Neill Salon and the this other thing, which is called the Poetry of Your Story. We haven't completely solidified the dates yet, so it's still a little touch and go. But this is going to be an online poetry workshop where at first it's going to be a seminar, and then there's going to be a workshop component to it, where the idea is incorporating genealogical research, because that's been a big exploding field now in particular. And we're doing this in conjunction, we're very excited about this, we're doing this in conjunction with a group called the African American Irish Diaspora Network, because there is this group actually, and they're very interested in, there's a lot of people of both African and Irish descent who are very interested in finding their, and researching their roots. And so the panel is going to include Paula Meehan, the Irish poet, and we're going to have some representatives of, I believe it's ancestry.com. And the thing is going to be coordinated by Terry Ellen Cross Davis, who was the poetry coordinator for the the Folger Shakespeare Library down in DC. So that's going to be a really cool event, and that's going to be all online, and we'll let you know about that when that is coming up. But this is part of the thing when we talking about all these different, all these other things that we're organizing in addition to our big fundraiser. Did I did I mention that we have a fundraiser coming up at the end of the month? We do. We do. The Eugene O'Neill Lifetime Achievement Award. This year we're honoring Larry Kirwan, and we're going to have it in person again at Rosie O'Grady's in Midtown in Manhattan. And you can find out all about it on our website and various links that we're sending out through the newsletter, etc. But Larry, I am glad that you're here tonight, and I'm glad to be able to highlight the work that you're doing, because it is really a very cool thing. And like I say, it's a perfect example of the transatlantic, cultural exchange.
Thank you, Brendan. Thank you.
Yes, indeed. So I think we're just about ready to get rolling again. Our special guest closer has entered the building. Adrianna, I see that you're here. Now we have a recording, but I'm wondering if you're interested in saying a few things about the song or about what you've got coming up or anything else. If you prefer, I can just intro it, but if you're up for it, I'm sure people would be happy to hear from you directly.
Sure. Hi, everyone. Good evening. I don't know. Oh, is that
Anyway.
Your
camera's not on, but I'm gonna.
Okay,
I can't spotlight you unless your camera's on, actually.
Yeah, no, I'm still, hang on.
That's all right.
I am in bed with a stomach bug, so
Oh.
Hi, everyone. Anyway, I'm just gonna do my voice for now, if that's okay.
Yeah, no problem.
Hi, everyone. I'm Adrianna Mateo. I'm a singer-songwriter, actress, and solo violinist. I wasn't able to make the last Salon because I was preparing for a show at Carnegie Hall, and we had to keep everything really tight in terms of, keeping everybody healthy and ready for the show. This song, Love Disconnect, I originally premiered it on a live stream event with some of my heroes, Alan Menken, who of course composed the music for, Beauty and the Beast and some other really just like landmark cultural contributions to the animated genre. Most of them through Disney, but also outside of it. Josh Rubel, who's one of my, favorite violinists, Kristen Anderson Lopez and Robert Lopez, who wrote the songs for Frozen and who have like an amazing, amazing body of work, and Desmond Child, who has written probably, I think, around 3 decades of top 40 hits, including, the songs that made Ricky Martin's career and Madonna's and Bon Jovi. So anyway, I was really honored to have the song included. It's called Love Disconnect, and I wrote it probably like, not too far into the pandemic when everything was just, changing to become more online like this. So I hope that this has a little bit of resonance with you tonight, just because we are all here together, but on Zoom. So thanks, everyone. This is Love Disconnect.
Okay, so I'm gonna put that on right now. And once again, very glad that you're able to introduce it for us tonight, Adrianna, and thank you very much for contributing this. So get ready, here's Love Disconnect.
Chinatown, lights are loud, old flame in my DMs. I'm feeling right, not right, up all night, daytime comes and I wonder, will those lights light up again? Should I crack my heart open? Wanting this, wanting too much, starving to touch things I said I can't unsend. Understood but left unread. 3 dots, pause, silence. What's there left to do except the live disconnect? The live disconnect. The live disconnect. The live wires crossed, thoughts on loop, way too soon to tangle me and you. Strings naturally attached, naturally we match casually. I can't stop my glow up for your ego. Save you and call you my hero. Love you, but I'm number one. Tune up, cause I'm number one. Like a violin string snap. Cut the cord holding me back. 3 dots, no regrets. Nothing left to do except the live. Disconnect live. Disconnect live. Disconnect live. Disconnect.
Wow. Wow. That was really awesome. I think we should give her a big hand.
Thank you so
Congrats.
much, everyone.
Yeah, that was really fantastic. And it's funny, the first time I watched the video and I was like, I can't believe how good the mic sounds on the earpiece, but then I realized that it was just, it was a prop. But that was really fantastic. So thank you very much, Adrianna. And I hope you're feeling better soon. And
Oh, thanks. Oh, by the way, I actually did record this using an iPhone microphone, like one of the headphones, but then I had to like record the video separately, because what sounds good in a microphone sometimes isn't what looks good on camera.
Yeah.
So, a little bit of movie magic there. Thanks everyone. I just wanted to mention that I do have an email list and I send out one email maybe once every 2 months. And, I really reserve it for special occasions like when I'm performing at Carnegie Hall or elsewhere. So I'm going to drop the link in the chat. Please feel free to sign up. And I hope to see you at one of the live events soon. Thanks again.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. Please put your Linktree link in there as well. I was going to do that, but I'm doing a bunch of different things. But thank you very much, Adrianna. So
Thanks.
fantastic. All right. Next up, we have, because again, we're online, so we're broadcasting from all over the place. Coming from, I want to tell you about Texas radio and the Big Beat, and I want to tell you about Lawrence Welsh. Born and raised in South Central LA, Lawrence Welsh lives in El Paso, Texas. He's a first-generation Irish American and an award-winning journalist and essayist. He's also published 12 books of poetry, including the highly acclaimed "Begging for Vultures," New and Selected Poems, 94 to 2009, with University of New Mexico Press. Now it's in its second printing. His collection won the New Mexico Arizona Book Award. It was also named Notable Book by Southwest Books of the Year and a finalist for both the Penn Southwest Book of the Year Award and Writers League of Texas Book Award. His accolades and his accomplishments go on, and I will post them in the blog, or we'll get them posted in the blog. But for now, let's just get right to it. So Lawrence, I'm going to ask you to unmute yourself, and then we'll be ready to go. So here, without any further ado, is Lawrence Welsh.
Thanks so much, Brendan. I'm going to read from a book that I spent 10 years writing. It's completed now, and it's a memoir. And I'm just going to read a couple pages from it. It's called White Boy from South Central. White Boy from South Central, a memoir about growing up Irish in Los Angeles. Prologue. A priest once told me you'll survive and make it out, but I didn't believe him. In many ways, I still don't. For how can one get through a South Central youth and then leave it, every bit of it? Or how can one escape Los Angeles, especially when born and raised there? And what about me, a white boy? Say the only one for miles around, say the one who's Irish and carrying baggage from the famine and coffin ships? How does it all come pouring down from mother and father and all the other generations? Would a chance then get strengthened for survival? Maybe mother, God rest her soul, can offer a clue. It was a tough life, she said, too tough. No one gave us a tang in Ireland, and you had more in Los Angeles, son, but it was terrible what happened to you, simply terrible. But you were always a tough little boy. But tougher than what? Death? The neighborhood? The Crips and Bloods? The Inglewood street gangs? The Old English 800 malt liquor? The acid and angel dust? Perhaps or perhaps not, but only words can tell the tale. Only language can bring the truth to light, and light must get thrown around, for it brightens the darkness, lessens the pain, and lets one continue on his way. Chapter 1. Father's in our small bedroom bent over the wooden crib, and he's crying. But he doesn't see me, for I'm in back of him in the hallway's darkness, and I'm 3 years old. And this is my first memory, and it's of death. For my baby sister Bernadette has died, and Dad's looking at her, or is he already gone from the crib? I don't know. All I know is he's a man who never cries and will never cry, and yet he's crying. And she was just a baby, less than a year old. And years later, I'd learned that she got sick, caught pneumonia or something, and nothing could be done. That she was now one of God's little angels who was placed in the Holy Cross fields. Dad straightens up finally, wipes his eyes on his t-shirt, and that's it. No more tears. He knows no one has seen him. And that's a good thing, for he's the one with the broad back and strong arms, the high school basketball champ, boxer, and football player, the one from D-Day in World War II, who picked up the bodies off of the beaches of Normandy, the one who married only once in life at 43 does not see me. And I back further into our small hallway, and I'm now moving through the darkness. Perhaps then the first sight of Old Crow, or a fifth of Old Granddad, takes hold. The gold labels as intoxicants in the cans of Schlitz next to Father's green Naugahyde TV chair, and the hidden then discovered bourbon bottles are everywhere, in back of closets, under the kitchen sink, out in the garage, and Mother says, go get Papa's bottle, and the hunt is on. To find, discover, and then bring the treasure to her. Sometimes already Dad's explosion of, where is it? Who stole my bottle? And Mother's contentment of conquest, that she had it, hid it, and kept it away, and her returning it for God's sake, for every man needs a little drink, don't they? They certainly all did in Ireland, a little drink, that is. But Pete, dear, Mother says, the key is a little drink. It's all you need. And then the journey resumes, the walking back to the black and white Zenith TV with the Kohl Schlitz cans on our weekend ground. I'm watching the clock now above our kitchen door. It's red and white with big black hands. There's excitement in our home, a quiet electricity where Mom arrives too and stares at the numbers. And then my brother and sister, Sean and Teresa, walk in and we're all watching it. And Father whispers, a year, kids, a year without a drink. And when it hits noon, like it did 12 months earlier, he goes to the refrigerator and grabs a Schlitz 12-ounce can and takes it from the six-pack, the first six-pack in a year. And he opens it at the refrigerator and pops the top, and he tilts his head and drinks about half a can. And he lets us know, without saying a word, that some new ceremony has started, some holy rite where all will calm down for a while and he'll be content and happy. And he takes the can to the TV chair and puts it on the ground next to him. And I sneak over on my hands and knees and breathe in the foam, hops, and barley and see and smell the beer that made Milwaukee famous, the blue world on the can. And I know without knowing that his pledge is over, thank God, a year without a drink. And now it's okay, for a year is a very long time. And before the TV show is over, Father finishes the beer, rises, and happily walks back to the refrigerator. Thank you.
That's fantastic. Thank you very much, Lawrence.
Wow, powerful, very powerful.
Yeah. And you can definitely, I mean, you definitely have the cadence of, you know, the poetry is still coming through in that, you know, and it's really very, very good. It's very powerful. But thank you very much. And thank you again for joining us tonight. It's great to have you back.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, yeah. And keep us, so is the book finished yet, or is it still in progress?
Yeah, it's finished. It took 10 years to write, and it's done, and it's been edited, and I almost had it published with a big New York publisher, but we know about almost in the writing game, so it's going back out on the streets. But thanks for asking.
Oh, no problem. Well, keep us posted, and when it's out, we'll make sure we you know, get you back on and promote it some more. But thank you very much for sharing. It's wonderful. And our next featured author tonight is Gemma Whelan. She is a person living on the West Coast now, but she's originally from Ireland. And she has a lot of her original credits sort of in the theater, the world of theater, but she has now just published, I believe, her second novel. And she's going to read from that tonight. I will let her introduce herself further, but we're going to talk more after the reading. So please welcome Gemma Whelan.
Hi, everybody. Thanks very much, Brendan. Yeah, this is my second novel, and it's just come out, and it's called Painting Through the Dark. So I'm going to read two short sections. And the first is the prologue, so it doesn't need any setup. Prologue, June 20th, 1982. A scraping of tires on stones woke her. Aisling peered out through the car window at the two-story house nestled in a clearing in a forest. Tall, angular shapes jutted up, barely discernible in the still darkness. Bluish light from a television screen flickered through drawn curtains. Charlie reached over and touched her shoulder. Ready? She could see his face dappled with moonlight, smiling. She nodded and shook herself to dispel her anxiety. The gravel squeaked under Aisling's feet as she stepped out, and the sharp edges pricked her soles through the light sandals. Charlie led the way. She stayed close, following him through the darkness towards the flickering light. He took an oversized brass key from his pocket and inserted it in the keyhole. When it clicked, he eased open the thick wooden door as if signaling entrance to a fortress. They stepped inside. Charlie closed the door and locked it behind them. Aisling flinched. She was plunged into black. Charlie's hand on her elbow guided her down the dim entrance hall towards the living room. Her body flooded with trepidation. She had imagined a light-filled space. They stood a moment in the frame of the doorway and looked in. It was like going back in time. Heavily fringed lamps cast narrow pools of light in the tightly shuttered room. Paneled walls blended with the floral pattern of the brown carpet and green brocade curtains. The TV light leapt across the furniture, forming Rorschach ink blots. Rose sat parked in her wheelchair in front of the television. Aisling was struck by her strong resemblance to Charlie, handsome, well-defined cheekbones, brownish eyes, and olive skin. Rose appeared to be much older and possessed none of Charlie's elegance. Her straggly graying hair was pulled back in a bun, and a grimy red velour bathrobe strained across her ample middle. "You're late, Chaz." Rose raised her arms in a ballet-like pose. He crossed quickly from the entryway, melting into the funnel of her embrace. "Rosie." It seemed a familiar and oft-performed sequence, a refined pas de deux. Aisling quickly banished the thought that there was something more than fraternal affection between them. Just because her brothers in Ireland would die of shame if she hugged them like that didn't mean there was anything amiss. Irish people like herself were the ones with the problem showing affection. Americans were open and free. She couldn't as easily dispel the dread in the pit of her stomach that she'd made a massive mistake. Why had she left light-filled San Francisco for this? So the first chapter takes place in San Francisco, and it's a couple of weeks earlier, May 31st, 1982. And Aisling has arrived in San Francisco and found that the friend, Magella, who was supposed to meet her, is not at the airport. It was Magella who sparked the idea of San Francisco when she'd come back to Timoleen the Christmas before. Aisling had just left the convent a few months before she was to be ordained, and she was an emotional wreck. Magella was home for the funeral of the uncle who had raised her, and according to chatter in the village, had molested her. Nobody dared talk directly about this, let alone confront the bastard. Instead, everyone remarked how generous lanky Laverty was to have taken in his orphan niece. It all made Aisling's blood boil. Aisling was working long hours in the art gallery and squeezing in as many art lessons as she could from the owner, Brendan, who she'd studied with since she was a young teenager. Magella brought her husband, Alan, in to meet Aisling. "How did you stick it out in that feckin' convent for all that time?" Magella had blurted out. "I thought I had a vocation," Aisling said. It sounded stupid now. She knew she'd been hiding behind those walls. Magella turned to Alan. "We were far too young to know our minds." Her voice was razor sharp. "I suppose they'll hire you in the primary school the minute you qualify, Aisling." "I'm only finishing up my teacher training to please my parents. Anyway, Sister Ignatius will never retire." "They should get rid of that bloody witch." Magella's blue eyes blazed. "She knocked me to the floor once with a wallop to the side of the head because I sang a wrong note." "I remember, and all the other poor kids she battered for no good reason." "I don't get it. Why doesn't anyone complain?" Alan asked. Aisling and Magella's eyes met. "Ireland," they said in unison. "Priests and nuns, they're sacred cows," Aisling said. "They get away with bloody murder," Magella said. "I bet America's completely different." Aisling looked hopefully at her friend. Magella flipped her head and her dark curls skimmed her cheeks. "It's lovely altogether. No one breathing down your neck, and you can be who you want to be." "Even an artist?" Aisling said. "Of course. San Francisco is teeming with artists." The whisper of freedom and possibility rippled through Aisling. Within a week, she applied for a visa. Aisling checked the instructions on the map and stepped down from the bus at 7th Avenue onto an actual San Francisco sidewalk. It was dark now. Streetlights illuminated clusters of Victorians and the flat-roofed houses with rambling fire escapes and businesses in front. She scanned the street and plodded across to the N Judah stop. Her legs were throbbing from the long plane journey. At 46th Avenue, Aisling hoisted up her ever heavier backpack and trudged over to Irving. There was the address. She approached the pink stucco house and climbed the red brick stairs to the arched entranceway. The glass door with the laced curtain looked comfortingly Irish. She could practically taste that cup of tea. Aisling rang the bell and waited. Her whole body tingled with anticipation. With Magella, she could get the words out. 6,000 miles away from home, they could safely talk about all the topics that were taboo in Timoleen. She rang the bell again. She heard a chair scraping and a rustling from inside. The front door opened and she was face to face with a middle-aged Chinese couple who stood side by side. Jesus Christ, what were they doing in Magella's house? Please, please, the man said. Hello, sorry, I'm looking for my friend who lives here, Magella Laverty, or Strang, her husband's name. Two sets of eyelids flickered, and the pair moved even closer to each other until their matching tunics touched at the shoulders. Just a few months ago, she wrote, she heard the worry in her own voice. The woman gave a little jump, nudged her husband, and pointed to the house. For us, house, we buy. She tapped her hand on her heart. But it has to be a mistake, Aisling said, and showed them the return address on the envelope. She double-checked the address on the letter against the one on the front of the house, aching for the alchemy that was going to change one or the other and lead her to safety. Do you know who lived here before? She said slowly. The woman's eyes lit up. She held out her finger to Aisling and darted into the house and returned with an index card with Magella and Alan's names and a forwarding address in Stuttgart, Germany. Young people, they leave. Aisling stared at the print in panic. Oh my God. Why didn't Magella tell her? Maybe she wrote a letter and it got lost, or it was meandering towards Timoleen. The international post moved as slow as cold gravy. Thanks, sorry. Aisling scribbled the address and hoisted her back onto her exhausted body. The couple bowed. Aisling bowed back and walked away. She stood on the sidewalk and stared through stinging eyes into the fog. Her heartbeat thrummed in her ears. The windows of houses were rectangular parcels of light, and old-fashioned street lamps cast a yellow glow along the avenue. Magella was supposed to be her life raft. A car shot by like a gust of wind. A streetcar chugged faintly several blocks away. Aisling was marooned in America.
That was great. That was wonderful.
That was powerful.
Thank you.
Wow.
So Gemma, I wanted to talk with you a little bit because now the book is out, right? It's from
Yes.
Adelaide Press.
Yes.
I just posted a link to where you can buy it directly from there, or you can probably get it on Amazon, right?
You can get it on Amazon as always. Yeah.
But I should have read the synopsis before you read your excerpt, but I think from the context, most people can figure out what's going on there. That this main character, Aisling, is she's 21. She's coming over. She has been raised by nuns, and she was in the convent in Ireland. And this is now 1982, and she's in America. And as it says here, she arrives in San Francisco in 1982 with a backpack, a judo outfit, her artist portfolio, a 3-month visa, and a determination to find a way to speak up about the abuse of girls and women in Catholic Ireland. So I guess, it may seem like sort of a very obvious question, but I guess partly is, how long have you been thinking about this story? What prompted you to put it out now? besides finishing the book and getting it published. But I mean,
yeah, I've been thinking about this story a long time. I came to America at the age of 21, and I actually started out. I came to New York and with nothing and nobody, and actually people who were supposed to sponsor me moved like right before I got on a plane. So I didn't know anybody, and my job was, my plan was buy a New York Times and get a job. And that's what I did. And because I had $60, which was 40 pounds at that time. And I actually got myself a job in a house on Long Island. And I was working for a woman who had been paralyzed because of an accident. So some of the details of that story show up, but essentially what happened to me was I ended up becoming a sort of virtual prisoner in that place, and I knew nobody. And at that point you couldn't, well, I probably wouldn't have told my parents, and I did not tell. I wrote home. You wrote letters then because it was too expensive to ring, but I did not tell anybody because I was in America. I was trying to leave. I left Ireland to get out of there, so I needed to make it somehow. So I ended up sticking it out. So it was really based on that experience that I set this. It's actually set in San Francisco, where I lived for many, many years before I moved to Portland. And then it's also set in this house in rural California, where Aisling ends up. She doesn't even know the address. She doesn't even know where it is. So,
yeah.
So yeah, it was based on a feeling of, powerlessness and also several demeaning things that happened to me, assumptions people made because I was an Irish girl, with no supports or not knowing anybody or no money. So I had to get out of a few scrapes.
Well, okay. So at the risk of being overly personal then, is the judo aspect this part of this as well? Are you subtly implying that if anybody says anything bad about this novel, you're going to kick their ass?
That's a really good, I'll certainly execute a kick or two. I did, I went to Trinity College in Dublin, and I joined
the judo school of Ireland, I believe.
I had a fabulous judo teacher. I love judo. But I didn't use it as, let's say my character Aisling uses it a lot better than I'd ever be able to. That's the thing about making people up, right? You can imbue them with all sorts of, and right. she's a painter, she's an artist, which I am not. There's a lot about art in the book. And I've been a theater artist my whole life, and yeah.
Painting through the dark. I do think I do really think that that line, especially marooned in America, that really, not to go into the martial arts, but that really hits. And I think it really captures that feeling. It sounds like your experience was a little more 19th century than 20th century in terms of that experience of coming from Ireland and sort of being, indentured here.
In some ways it was. And, I'm not, Aisling is from Mayo. I've put her from like one of the most, remote counties of Ireland. I'm actually from County Laois, which maybe isn't all that much better. I'm in, it's the middle of Ireland and the middle of a bog. The Bog of Allen is the biggest bog in Ireland, and it's in County Laois. So and people usually don't emigrate from there. They're from better known counties. But I also had her be in a convent, so she was quite protected in some ways and innocent in many ways. But I was plenty innocent myself, because Ireland in the 60s, 70s, and up until the 80s was actually a bit like the 19th century, honestly. Yeah. Now it's ahead of a lot of places, including the US in many ways. Right?
Yes,
socially Ireland's caught up.
The concept that people might be going to people might be going from America to Ireland for women's health care and stuff like that. It's kind of
it's astounding. It's astounding.
But
yes.
Your previous novel was Fiona the Stolen Child.
Yes.
Did you write them? Were you writing these simultaneously, or did you start this after you had finished that one?
Yeah, actually I did start this one after I finished that one, and I wrote them originally as screenplays. I was actually studying film at San Francisco State University in the 90s, and I wrote them as screenplays. Now they've changed hugely, but I had a structure, and so I built on that structure when I had time to go back to them, when I had time to get back to them. I ran a theater company I've been a freelance director for like 30 years, and then I ran a theater company, which I just handed over the reins of in Portland, a contemporary Irish theater company.
Oh, cool. Very interesting.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to include your the link to your main website in the notes and in our blog as well. But my question really was, it's interesting. There's two broad questions I have. The first is, and you don't have to answer this if you don't want right now, but how your work in the theater affect, how you feel that informed your like more literary novelistic writing, and whether or not obviously there is a difference.
Yes.
But I'm curious as to if you felt that had any effect. And then I have a follow-up.
Well, I tend to, I think probably a lot of Irish theater is very literary anyway. It tends to be more, Irish theater in general tends to be, the monologue is famous in Irish history, people like Brian Friel, and there's actually some gorgeous prose, poetry, and I would call it poetry, that is theater and is performed on stage. And I think that comes from the history of, talkers, of the Irish people as being talkers and of oral traditions.
The first I'm hearing about it, but okay.
I know you never heard about it, and there might be some, like McCourts, for example, people called McCourt, who are also great talkers and writers in that tradition.
The jury's still out. We'll have to see.
Might be quite close here.
Yeah. Pressure is on now, Malachy.
So I think, and in terms of structure, I think it really helped me in terms of it's storytelling. Like it's all storytelling, right? And how to tell a story. And then as a director, when I work with other people's scripts, I need to learn how to, it's about shaping and sculpting, and just in a way, any art form is like finding the shape and trying to shape it and finding, yeah.
So then my second question is, for the second novel, what had you learned, what did you learn from the first novel that affected, or if anything, affected the creation and the publication of the second?
Well, I hope my writing is better. You always hope, and I hope the next one will be better again. Because
at
a
least
lot of
half a grade, we hope, right?
At least half a grade.
Yeah. A- to A+, right?
I hope so. I hope so. I'm very proud of my first novel, but I do see things, and I'm more aware now, and aware of things. It's hard to see your own, and I do work with people. It is very small, like 2 people in a writing group that I worked with for years. So I think I've learned, probably to be more concise, what to get rid of. And I did this, in film, I had to learn this as well, because I did writing and film editing. And in editing, you learn about pruning, you learn to, you have to kill your babies sometimes, the things that you're so attached to, and you're probably attached to them for some personal reason of your own, which actually is not going to serve your reader or your audience or your viewer at all. And that's hard. That can be hard to emotionally actually extricate yourself and say, cut that.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And I would encourage everybody, if you can stick around and you are willing, after we hear from Malachy, we usually open up and just have like a free-for-all conversation, where maybe folks might have questions for you.
Totally, I'm happy
chat
to.
right now, but we can figure that out. Because he's been patiently waiting, I want to pass the mic to and again, thank you very much, Gemma. That was wonderful.
Thank you very much, Brendan.
Thank you. And so, as is our tradition, we're going to wrap the evening up with some words and some wisdom from Mr. Malachy McCourt. So Malachy, if you can unmute yourself, that would be dynamite. Let me see if we got you here. Not yet, not unmuted yet. Still can't hear you. Hang on a minute. Let's see. It's probably, oh, there you go. Try it now.
Yeah.
Yep,
Okay,
there you go.
I'm stretched out in my bed. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Malachy. You're on.
Okay. Thank you. And a vote of thanks to Brendan for getting us through this evening once more. Thank you again, Brendan. I am going to read a piece of Death Need Not Be Fatal. And the chapter is I Come from a Long Line of Dead People. That's it. When my mother Angela was here and we asked her, what do you want us to do with your body when you die? Just throw me into the Shannon, she said, and let me float away, she said once. But of course, the Shannon was what she missed most of all about Limerick when she was in America. But she was here, and we followed the usual path one takes in preparing a loved one's departure. We put notices in the paper and got Angela into a coffin and into the viewing area and waited for friends and family and assorted bodies to arrive and have a gig. The funeral parlor was on West 72nd Street in Manhattan. Now the chairs were set very formally in rows, and we immediately put them in a circle, and someone went out and got the beer, drink was taken, and the sing-along began, much to the consternation of management of that funeral parlor. Alfie had the best voice in the McCourt family, so he led the refrain with Frank admirably accompanying him on the harmonica, at which Frank was more than proficient. We first sang the songs we knew Angela disliked. And if she were not dead, she would have arisen and smote us. Goodbye, Johnny dear, when you're far away. Don't forget your dear old mother far across the sea. Write a letter now and then, send her all you can. And don't forget where'er you roam that you're an Irishman. But then we ended with our version of the family anthem, Barefoot Days. I can remember how proud I used to be when Dad and Mother would buy new shoes for me. That's a feeling we've all had, how new shoes would make you glad. But the best time, if you recall, was when you wore no shoes at all. Right. So when Angela's Ashes was published and began to become quite familiar to people around the world, stories about Mother's Ashes and their whereabouts began to appear in various publications and informal conversation. Most of the stories about them in the press were untrue. And Frank didn't help matters any. I was always under the impression that the title came from the mother's woodbine fags. But Frank told an interview that the story of Angela's cremation ashes was in the original manuscript and had been edited out to be used in his second memoir, Tis. Now, I don't have anything against the good lie, but some of the ones that made their way into the newspapers offended even my ethnic sense of the truth, elastic sense of the truth. Now they say it's not nice to speak ill of the dead, but I believe there is no better time. They can't talk back, so here goes. As one might remember, Richard Harris was an acclaimed actor, and from his Academy Award nominated role in This Sporting Life to his portrayal as Dumbledore in Harry Potter's movies,
a bona fide international movie star. He shone on the big screen for nearly 40 years. Like me, Harris grew up in Limerick, so we did not mix. He was from a prominent, well-off family and went to the Crescent Jesuit School. And I was Laner, the lowest form, and barefoot much of the time. We became friendly here in America, and though I played rugby against him in 1950 in Ireland, it was an under-20 league. Harris was a year older than I was, so he was born in 1930. And that's how I found out he was a cheat. So many of his mates, ringers, filled the team. We became close drinking buddies, contradiction in terms, in New York when I ran my pub Malachy's and later on himself. When Harris would come into town, I know I was in for a bender, a fight, and a hangover of epic proportions. One night in a pub, a few of us, Frank and myself included, were having a heated discussion on a forgotten subject. When Harris put his hand on Frank's face, "What the fuck do you know?" he said contemptuously. "You're just a school teacher." Frank's reaction was to lash out with his fist and break the actor's nose. Later, when Harris retold the story, he emphasized that Frank threw the punch and ran, which was not the case. So you wouldn't blame him if he had, because Frank was at least 50 pounds lighter than Harris, who was still in terrific shape. Cowardice, however, was not in Frank's character. Myself and a few of the boys did usher him out of the door so as not to tempt fate, but Frank did not run. And Harris was a revisionist. He played Oliver Cromwell, the hero of the eponymous movie, with an over-the-top vigor that left no doubt about a progressive spirit and a great champion of the common man old Oliver was. Of course, easily dismissed in the film was the fact that Cromwell siege in the city of Drogheda in mid-17th century slaughtered 3,000 men, women, and children. And it just so happened that was 9/11. The English Parliament declared a national Thanksgiving in celebration, and in its official record wrote, "This House of Parliament doth approve of the execution done at Drogheda as an act of both justice to them, the butchered ones, and mercy to others who may be warned by it." The day of the Drogheda massacre happened to be September 11th, an eerie precursor of another horrible day to come. But Cromwell's killing of the innocent Irish didn't stop there. These forces would kill thousands more in Wexford and then 5,000 Limerick citizens in the following year. And according to Harris, Frank besmirched the reputation of the hometown and Angela's ashes, but he must have thought that his own portrayal of the mass murderer of Limerick was pure art. So that was, oh yes, and this is, I want to show you this before I get it. There I am in the coffin. And that's me up the paper. So anyway, there we are. Thank you, Brendan.
Well, thank you very much, Malachy. Really appreciate it. And everybody, I'm sure, give a big hand and feel free to unmute yourself. And I mean, unless are there any other thoughts, Malachy? You want to? It's up to you. I'm gonna let you go.
Well, I mean, that whole thing with Harris, we had a terrific row And we had, he was from a very well-to-do Limerick family, and they played tennis and they had cars and they lived in a very elite part of Limerick and all of that. And I forget, I really don't know what the row was about. And I was in London when he was in the hospital. He was cancer, they said. And I thought maybe I should go and see him. But anyway, I called up and they told me only people with a passport could see him. So I didn't. So he died. But anyway, I am quite friendly with his sons now and all. Oh yes, and they have made a documentary about him. And they came to my house and filmed me here. And they decided, that's Jared, his son told me, they left out the part about having not been on speaking terms up to the time of his death. And so anyway, we left it. They said it's complimentary and all that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway,
good.
As Oscar Wilde said it, to give your enemies, it annoys them. So that's
yeah. Well,
he wasn't my enemy, really. Well, I was sorry we didn't. You know how it is when death comes, you just forgive everything, and it just. So I should have just barged my way into the London hospital and said goodbye. There you are.
Yeah. Well,
but what a great program this evening, Brendan.
Thank you so much. I just wanted to say thanks to everybody who presented tonight. And including the folks that either had to leave or were visiting us on recording. But I'm just gonna leave it open now, and so that you can just have your we could just sort of put it into what do they call this, gallery mode, and feel free to chat amongst yourselves or not. If you have any questions for any of the folks that are still here or presenting, if you want to ask Lori about Tau House, you want to ask Gemma about her judo career and what the dojo at Trinity College is like. Where I defy you to find any place else on the internet where you're going to find that information, at least tonight, at least right now. So, but again, thank you all very much. Keep your eye out. Once again, on our website, we have the link to get tickets for the O'Neill event. Keep an eye out for the other events that we have coming up, including the Poetry of Your Story event that I mentioned with the genealogy and Terry Ellen Davis from the Folger Shakespeare Library, as well as the upcoming Eugene O'Neill online event with Lori Cassels. But feel free to chime in, and I'm sure that if you ask him a question, Malachy might answer it.
You never know. So it's great we have Larry Kilwin as the honoree of our dinner of our annual celebration this year, and Kate Mulgrew will be presenting him. Yeah. And I will be presenting Kate Mulgrew because we've run around for years.
You can borrow my Starfleet uniform, Malachy.
Oh yes.
I bought one because Kate Mulgrew, in addition to many other things, was Captain Janeway on Star Trek Voyager. So we had a whole bit worked out about this. We had Orange is the New Black and Star Trek memorabilia all wrapped up in the thing. But yeah, there's going to be a bunch of stuff happening. We're going to open with kind of like a trad session, and there's going to be a little dance production. I don't want to spill the beans too much, but it's going to be a nice night, and it's also the first time that we're going to be having this event in 3 years. So for everybody who talks about how much they hate Zoom, this is your chance to prove it.
May we say hello?
Of course, yes, please.
Okay, this is our very first time to be with you. And we wish that many years ago we'd known about it. Otherwise, we would have been here sooner. My name is Anne, and my husband is Matt. And Malachy was our best man at our wedding.
Oh wow!
And
God almighty.
hi.
Yes. Oh, oh,
Oh
God, how
my
much
goodness.
it's been many a year.
So we wanted to say hello. We wanted to come on and experience this group. And I wish we could have been here much sooner. And this is Matt right here. Say hi, get on camera.
Oh, there.
Yeah.
Where are you now, please say?
We're
Where
living
are
in San Pedro, California. It's near
Yeah.
Los Angeles.
you moved out there a week or two ago?
Yeah, just a little.
Good to see you, Matt. My God.
Yeah. Well,
Well,
I love the book.
looking couple. God
I
be
love
with
the book. I love it.
Oh, that's great. Yes.
Mr. Reddick.
There is something really, really profound about pitching the book with your picture of you in the coffin while you're laying in bed reading from it. It's pretty, that's on the nose. That's some real, that's
So we haven't seen
insider
Malachy
publishing
since
stuff. I'm sorry, say again, Ed?
Oh, I'm sorry.
No,
Okay.
go ahead.
All right. Well, we haven't seen Malachy since the 80s when we brought our son, who was 10 at the time. And we saw a couple of blaggards then. And at that point. And we haven't seen him since the 80s. And I just wanted you to know, Malachy, that Matt is just we're completing writing a book with his poems and his essays. And he has his essays in there. There's one about you and you introducing us to Richard.
Oh.
So, and he's also put you in the acknowledgements part of the book.
Did I have himself at that time? Was that the bar?
I'm sorry?
Which bar did I have?
Oh, which bar did he have at the South? What was the name?
Malachy, and then there was himself.
Malachy and himself. Which one was?
Malachy. I can't remember now. I know I had one because we had a bit of a party there, I remember. Wherever it was, anyway. In any case, here we are today. We don't have to remember.
And please say hello to Diana. We never got to meet.
Yeah.
But I read recently that she was a ballet dancer, and so was I. And I wish we'd known that then.
Yeah, she studied at the what's his name, the great ballet master here in New York. What was his name? Anyway, it'll come to me. He rang the ballet school here, the great one. Yep. I did not do ballet myself. I played rugby.
No?
I played rugby.
That wasn't the part of the memoir you left out for the second book.
On your toe.
Well, it's lovely to see you.
Balanchine, no?
Balanchine.
Yeah, that's what I was going to guess.
Balanchine was the name. Yeah. Yeah.
I couldn't figure out how to unmute myself, sorry.
Well done. Thank you.
Sure.
I would not have been able to sleep.
You're welcome.
We are going to, this might be the future of the online salons. We're going to work in a little, Hollywood Squares trivia kind of thing.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, if any, I'm gonna, unless anyone else wants to, feel free to chat if you like. But if we're ready to call, we can, I can stop recording. I'll stop recording anyway. But feel free to keep talking. Now you can say what